Hello, how are you today? I hope you're doing exceedingly well. Are you considering using Facebook Live to serve your audience? Author and speaker Janet McHenry is doing just that. She's going to tell us why she started and how it's impacting both her audience and her marketing. Hi, I'm Patricia Durgan, and this is Marketers on a Mission. We present marketing tutorials and interviews by and for Christian writers, speakers, and artists. This is episode number 162, What I'm Learning from My Prayer Experiment on Facebook Live with author Janet McHenry. Hello, Janet. How are you today?
I'm doing great, Patricia.
Well, you look like $1,000,000. I'm so glad you could join me.
You.
Viewers, I've already interviewed, Janet and I have already enjoyed an interview, and I'm going to share that link. It's already up on my YouTube channel. I'm going to share that link with you after the program. Today we have a specific focus, and it is how Janet's using Facebook Live to serve her audience. So let's start right away. Let me mention your book, because we're probably going to mention this more than once. This is the complete guide, the complete guide to the prayers of Jesus. This is the latest release of Janet's, and it's doing very well, isn't it, Janet?
I hope so.
Prayer, though, is more than a book about prayer for you, isn't it?
It was it's sort of a seminal work for me in terms of like 20 years of study about what Jesus said about prayer, what he taught about prayer, his prayer practices, and then his prayers themselves, but also still how he continues to intercede for us today. So all of that is in one volume, and hopefully it's a great resource and inspiration for people.
It is a great resource. I like that you have practical application in the back of the chapters. You have questions. It can be used. Now, you didn't say this, but correct me if I'm wrong, because I might be. This seems like something that could be very well suited to a small group study. Is that right?
Well, actually, yes, that was a part of the design, and I'm actually leading my small group in the study of my book right now. They insisted. So we're having a good time with that. And we've had some really great discussion, and I'm seeing some sweet sort of comments and ideas from people about how it has influenced their prayer life. So that's been fun.
And before you created this book, wrote this and published it, released it, you were a prayer walker. Now, I've never heard that term before, and even though we've already talked about it in our previous interview, I want to get these basics down. Tell us what a prayer walker is, please.
Someone who is interceding for their community by walking the streets of their neighborhood, their city, their downtown, wherever, might be their particular focus. I live in a really little rural town, so I can pretty much cover most of the streets in a prayer walking session of about an hour. And I'm basically praying for whatever God puts within my eyesight, praying for the business people, praying for commuters heading off to Reno or coming home from Reno, praying for the schools, praying for the bus drivers, anything that God puts within my eyesight. That's a really good reason to pray.
I like the way that you phrase that. So if you see someone who might be having a hard day, I think one of your posts was about a mother struggling with children, trying to get them in the car and go about their day. And that was something that you prayed about. That was in your eyesight.
Right. So it just, wherever you are, I feel there is a need for prayer. So, and I think God orchestrates our lives in such a way that he can put us as intercessors where others need us, to lift them up in the situations that they're going through.
Absolutely. Absolutely. How has being a prayer walker, or let me back up. When did you start that? How long ago?
Been 20 years this fall. Yeah. It was kind of an interesting time. I was falling apart physically, but I also knew that God had called me to a deeper life of prayer. We just sent our second child off to college, and I was kind of woohooing that fact. So there was a really good reason for me to get out and get healthier. But God opened up my eyesight in terms of the way I was praying. Instead of praying for just all my concerns, he showed me that others have concerns, and that practice actually helped lift off depression that had clouded most of my adult life, taken away irrational fears because I was facing a lot of them as I was walking, So it really provided a lot of personal change for me, but a lot of sense of reward as I was interceding for my little town.
Mm, mm. And unbeknownst to you, it was a precursor to this, the foundation for this work. Is that right?
That's right, because as I began to become someone, I felt God was calling me to pray for my community. I wanted to know more about prayer. So as I was reading through my Bible during the year, I would mark different areas with a circled P in the margin, underline that, and write little notes. And so I began to be really fascinated with the concept of prayer. After all, it's the secondary teaching of Jesus. First, he teaches about eternal life, and then undergirding that, how to actually communicate with your Father in heaven. So, and I focus a lot on the teachings and the prayer life of Jesus. So it was really a thrill. I'd done 5 other books on prayer, Prayer Walk, Daily Prayer Walk, 3 other books, and then to be able to have all of this in one book really was a real thrill for me this year. So partnered with Bethany House Publishers in that, and they've done a beautiful job with the book. I feel very privileged to have done it.
Mm. The cover is beautiful. It's very it's rich without being wordy, because it's not a huge book. When somebody says a volume, lots of information in one single book, it sounds a little bit heavy, but it's not at all.
No, there's a lot of content in it, but there are also practical applications that I've found, and some ideas that God just laid on my heart about his prayers and his teachings and how everything kind of connects together. So
I like books that have practical application to them, and I don't have to draw the line from one vague point to another vague point. They lose me pretty quick when they're like that.
Hopefully it's a help to people.
It is. So a while back, how long ago did you start the prayer experiment? How did that come about? Why did you begin it? How did you learn? Tell me everything you know.
Okay. The prayer experiment is the daily Facebook Live that I'm doing at noon every day, and I'm simply sharing answers to prayer with people. This came about actually as a challenge through a master class that I was taking with Alice Kreider. She offers a master class on marketing, and I highly recommend it to speakers, to writers, to artists. It will help you understand the giftings that you have and to best use them to market the works that God has given you, to provide for people. So she challenged us who were taking her class to consider doing a Facebook Live for 100 straight days. So some of us have done that, and the premise behind that was that she said that the person who was training her to offer this master class said that those who do Facebook Lives for 100 days or more can find, success, in what they are doing. So it was not something I really ever pictured myself doing. I don't feel comfortable on camera. I love doing radio, but having your face out there, particularly kind of at my age, this part of my life is not necessarily a comfort zone. But, then I began thinking, God doesn't necessarily always leave us or put us in a comfort zone. And he wants us to be, I think there's this sense of maybe some restlessness in us, so that we can grow more confident in him, but also to rely more on him. So the concept, I knew I just didn't want to go out on a Facebook Live and do all sorts of random stuff, because I knew also that first it needed to connect to my brand, which is prayer and prayer walking. So there was one afternoon actually this summer where I was so exhausted from interceding for other people and some very, very heavy needs. Several surgeries were all happening on that day. I just felt wiped out by early afternoon. And I'm literally lying on my couch and saying, God, this is too much. This is too hard. And I realized that, those of us who are called to pray often can feel like that. And you can get discouraged, particularly when you don't necessarily see prayers answered all the time. Mm-hmm. So it was like, bing, I thought, there's the idea. And I thought, let's call it the prayer experiment. And every day at noon Pacific time, what I do is simply share answers to prayer that either I've experienced or other people have shared with me. So then I began to think, I didn't want it to be all about me. I want others to be able to share with people the excitement they have about the answers to prayer they're experiencing. Yes. So on Mondays, what I do is on my Facebook personal page, I simply post, how has God answered your prayers this week? Just that simple question. Mm-hmm. And so people then post their answers to prayer, and some of them have come as a result of a Wednesday post that I do every week, where I simply ask the question again on my personal page, because it has more views than my author page does. I say, how can I pray for you today? And people put their prayer requests there on Wednesday, and then I write out a prayer and pray for them right below their particular request that they have. Mm-hmm. So this has connected me with a lot of people in that way. And I thought it makes sense to have all these pieces kind of connect to one another through this Facebook Live. So, and even though I don't necessarily get a ton of views on that Facebook Live, I see that others post later on, or they might post a prayer request or an answer below below that Facebook Live post. Mm-hmm. So that's been an encouragement to me. And if others are thinking about that, I have a little bit of experience now and could share some ideas. But that's the basic premise of how it started. So.
Well, let me check Facebook and see if we have any comments or questions. I don't want to miss anybody if they're here and they may join us later. There's that. So I'm hearing you, if I'm understanding correctly, you're saying that on Monday and Wednesday, you have a specific focus, and that's consistent. Yes. And then the other days, because you're doing it like I do every weekday, but you're doing 7 days a week. I mean, you're in it every single day, with just the exception of your recent Israel trip and things like that.
Right.
And the other 5 days then are what is their focus, or is it pretty general? Just a connection and a support kind of a thing.
Well, and that all of this came out of a question I was asked a couple of years ago in a class I was taking. The question was, if someone looked at your Facebook page, what would they say about you? What would they think, your business is or your ministry is? So I did that, and I took objective eyes and I looked at my Facebook page, and I realized people think I'm the weather girl. Because I was posting weather pictures constantly, and I thought, oh my gosh, so where is my prayer brand? It wasn't necessarily there. And I've always felt this is kind of a fine line to walk. Jesus told us to go into our inner room and pray. Mm-hmm. So getting out in people's face and talking about prayer, it is not necessarily a comfortable area for me. But the thing is, I realize it's also not about me. It's about serving people. So that if you're considering doing a Facebook Live, first you want it brand focused, and then you want it service focused. It shouldn't be all about you and your cute little outfit today, or what your mother-in-law said about you that hurt your feelings, but it should be ministry-based, and ministry-based should be service-based. How could you be Jesus' hands and feet to other people through what you're going to offer them?
I love that. That's such an important point, and it's not talked about very often.
Yeah, that was just something that kind of resonated or clicked with me as well. Because a lot of these things I was already doing. I prayer walk for my community. I've coordinated the prayer ministries at my church for 12 years. I was involved with Moms in Touch for many years. I'm coordinating two county efforts for the National Day of Prayer. Lots of different ministries I'm involved with at church in terms of organizing prayer. So it was, I'm doing it, and I don't need to say, Yahoo, look at me, but again, continue to serve people through the Facebook community. That's what it's about.
And all of us, every marketer, then on top of that, every Christian marketer, we want to connect to our audience in a way that a non-Christian marketer might not. We have a connection with them that runs deeper than any other connection in life. Excuse me. And the best news that anybody could have to share. I like your style. I've always liked your style. You are gracious, truthful. You leave room for people to say what they want to say within reason. I've not seen any off-topic remarks. You create a welcome space for people to come and ask questions or share prayer requests. There are very few safe places these days, Janet, and you're creating one.
Well, that reminds me, I do also, if people are interested, I do have a private Facebook group called the Safe Place Prayer Group.
Oh!
So if they didn't want to post a prayer request publicly online on Wednesdays, anytime, they could ask me if they'd like to join that group, just with a comment below here today, and I could invite them to join that group. And it's a group of about, I think there are about 60 of us, which sounds huge. Yes. But we do keep things private within that particular setting, and I write prayers for people there. And it's amazing the support that this group is demonstrating for one another. I just love the sweet heart and spirit that's going on there. So
the enemy tells us, the enemy tells us that we can't do all these things. We're not smart enough, young enough, fill in the blank with the lie of the day. But also that there's no reason for someone who has the hope of Jesus to step out from the crowd that seems to be going to the left. And he makes it appear that if we're going to go to the right, that we'll be the only person going in that direction. But there's a lot of hungry people out there who just need someone to be bold enough to say, I'll be the leader for as long as Christ allows me to be the leader. And if and when he wants me to pass that off to someone else, I'll be glad to.
Yeah, I had a lot of reasons for not doing Facebook Live. The aging self, perception kind of issues that we might have as women, but also, it sounds silly, but I thought, I don't necessarily want to do my hair and makeup every day. You always look amazing, Patricia, on your program, but that's a big commitment for someone who finally gets to stay home full time after 26 years of teaching and just do writing and marketing from my little place here at home in my office. So that was a big thing. And the other thing was the idea of commitment. I thought, can I do it? Can I literally do it? So another piece of advice that I have for people is simply to keep it short, and that way you don't have this huge obligation hanging over you like, oh my gosh, what am I going to say today? So the Monday way that I ask for prayer answers, that provides content for what I can say in a particular day. And it does I can keep it to a couple short minutes. I try to add a little piece of teaching at the end of that in regard to prayer, as I've talked about one or more different prayer answers that people have had, so that there is some content, there's additional value there. In addition to encouraging people, maybe you're giving them a little bit of meat as well. So another point of advice.
That's
So
really
I'd say
good.
keep it brand focused, keep it service focused, keep it short, commit to it. If you say you're going to do it 3 days a week, do 3 days a week. If you're going to do it 100 days straight, do your best to do it 100 days straight. But also to keep it positive. There were a couple of Facebook Lives I've seen recently, and they were kind of whiny. And I just kind of turned it off for after a while. I thought, okay, I'm sorry for you. I'll pray for you, but I kind of I don't want to necessarily watch all that. So I do try to keep it positive, and
I, I think
so
you do a
that's
great
one of
job of
the
that.
things that I've learned.
What's your day now? You're doing it for 100 days. What number a day are you on now?
I started it August 1st. So I'm about at 90 days, something like that, 3 months straight. There were 12 days when I didn't do it. We were on the road going to and from Israel. We were there for 9-10 days. And so it was just, I wasn't going to be able to go live. And someone suggested, you could record pieces and then throw them up later. I've been sharing my photos and throwing some thoughts out there. So I decided to take that pressure off myself and just report later, share things later. And, I think thankfully we live under grace. And sometimes, maybe it's easy to offer grace to other people, but sometimes it's harder to offer that grace to ourselves. But I think we can do that. It's okay, and explain it later. Yeah. Sometimes I've missed the 12 o'clock deadline. I set my phone for usually 11:52 a.m. Pacific time. So it gives me 8 minutes to get it set up, to think through what I'm going to say, so that I don't get on and do a bunch of blah, 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 but just try to get right to the point so that I don't lose people too. Some Facebook Lives I've seen, I might see 5 minutes of, hey, today's been a really great day, and some other, do you like my hairstyle? Or, I think it's important to offer content and to get right to it. Don't waste people's time.
I agree. And excuse me. We have different links in our programs, but it makes no difference whatsoever, does it?
Right.
You get to choose how long your program is. That's part of the beauty of it.
Exactly. Yeah. And I love your program, Patricia, because you're always focused on one particular area of marketing. You bring someone who has expertise in that area. And the way that you do the interview panel, it's really fascinating. And I think it's innovative, and certainly others could do that as well. It would take a lot of organization, just a lot. And I know how hard you work at that. So blessings to you on that, and others who are willing to do it. I've tried to keep mine simple and short. So I can be consistent. Yes, I think it was on your program. I asked Twyla Belk recently, what was her most important marketing tip, and she said, "Be consistent." And so I think that is essential. Daily I put up a prayer walking in the Word meme, and I post that on Twitter, 2 pages of Facebook, Pinterest, in different formats, but it's always up. And that is something that people can look to and respond to and expect. So I think consistency is really important. And so this practice of the Facebook Live 100 days has helped me learn how to do that better.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that you will continue indefinitely, or are you going to make that decision at some time in the future? Do you know yet?
I think I will continue doing it. It may become a Monday through Friday kind of practice. Those are business days, and weekends, or I'm on the fly a lot. And recently I have several traveling weekends, so it's just been a lot more challenging to get it done. And the setting isn't always conducive right at noon when I should be going live. So again, grace, we live under grace, right?
This is an important point because we tend to waffle from can't do it, shouldn't do it, how could I do it, which freezes us up. All the way to if I don't do it perfect every single day of my life, I'm going to go to the bad place. No, neither one is accurate.
I think that of the do-its, the most important one is just do it. And that's kind of a motto that I've learned to live by. And the thing is that doing this, figuring out the technology, which is not that hard, people, it really is not that hard at all, has given me some courage to try out some other things. I recently figured out how to do Prezi. I figured out how to create a book trailer, some things like this on my website as well. And with each one, I'm like, ka-ching.
That's right.
I'm not too old and I don't have teenagers in the house anymore. But, with persistence, we can overcome a lot of these challenges that we have and just use it to bless others.
Yes. Your book trailer's great. I saw it. It's really, really nice. Very nice. Couldn't tell that you did it until you identified that you had done it. And I was like, oh, go Janet. Go Janet. Tell me what are 2 or 3 changes or benefits that you've seen in yourself or in your audience that participates as you have, you're 3 months in. That's a long time.
Yeah. I would say, first off, it's in a practical way, it's given me a lot more confidence as I'm under camera, essentially. And I've gone back and critiqued a lot of those short videos that I've done and realized that when I started out, I was speaking much too fast. And perhaps it wasn't as clear. And that there were a lot of ums, hesitations, things like that. So I've learned to slow down a little bit with my speaking so that it's clearer and so that I don't have those kind of blank spaces in my talks with people. So that's helped in a practical way. But I think it also has helped me connect with my audience. I have seen people, I'm going to order your book. Or just a kind comment like, you really care about people, or I know that you will pray. So Janet, or I'll get a Facebook message. I know you pray. So would you pray for my cousin or so forth? So, and those comments to me have been worth it all because I have a choleric personality. And if you're familiar with the choleric, you know that person is very business-like and to-do oriented and not so necessarily people-oriented. So I think God has changed my heart through it. And that's being conveyed to other people. They do see that I care. It's not just something that I do, but there is heart behind it. So
your books are already so powerful and clear and effective. Do you think, is there room for the results of what you're learning in your Facebook Live to add depth or richness to your books? Because they're already deep and rich.
I'd even thought about books that kind of would dovetail into this, some things that I've learned through it, and that could happen. I do have another book kind of in proposal stage, but it helped me actually conceive of another table of contents for another book on prayer that I might do. So, perhaps, the title Prayer Experiment, I've already looked it up. That's been done several times, and so bummer. But maybe the idea is still fresh as well. Either a book that could encourage intercessors or a book that shows people that actually prayer does work. So we'll see. Yeah.
One of the things that you wanted to mention also that we were talking about earlier is don't pay attention to the numbers or you'll quit on your second day.
Exactly. Yeah. you may not find that many people are actually tuning in at the point of live, or during your comments and so forth. But maybe later they see it, they watch it. You'll see that views will pick up later. Other people comment in, or they'll plop a little prayer request there below it, and so I do pray for them then. So, and I think overall, I think it comes down to consistency, being there on a consistent basis, and it does, I think, help develop your focus, your brand. So,
Viewers, for anyone who is considering using Facebook Live, be aware that statistically, 90+% of the people who see a Facebook Live see it in replay.
Exactly.
They do not tune in, as Janet said, for time restrictions and all different kinds of reasons. If you're putting out your best work that you have to offer that very day, then the burden is on Christ to let it go where he wants it to go, live in the person's heart that he wants it to touch. And your responsibility is simply to obey. And that keeps us busy enough, doesn't it, Janet?
Yeah. And I would like to encourage people, to consider, Patricia, you use your computer, and I'm using my computer now, but for my Facebook Lives, I use my phone. And I've got it set up that I can set the whole thing up in less than a minute. And that's even with the tagline, which I write out every time, the prayer experiment, sharing answers to prayer to encourage you to keep looking up. And looking up is my business name, so that kind of helps with that. But I can set that up in less than a minute now. And, whereas before I was really nervous about the technology, it's not that hard. You could have a teenager show you how to do it. Or you could call me. I'll help you do it. Yeah.
It's true. And it's like everything else. It seems overwhelming on the face of it. And then we try it and we stumble and we make it, and then the next day we do better and so forth. But eventually we get a pattern, we get a series down, we develop a system that works for us, and it doesn't intimidate us anymore, does it?
No, I don't get bubbles in my stomach anymore about it. Just like it's just part of your day. It's just like putting makeup on, it's just something additional that you do. And while it is more automatic, there is an intentional, authentic heart behind it, in terms of just simply wanting to encourage people to turn to prayer, to turn to the Lord, whatever circumstances they're going through, and just, again, keep people looking up. So
Yes. And when you're doing it, that whether they're present or they're going to be present, we always, in my mind, I'm speaking to a room full of people who are hungry to hear what God wants to say using my words. And I don't worry about the numbers. I'm not concerned. I mean, everybody likes to have feedback, so I'm not saying that that's not applicable. It's wonderful to get feedback and have people who are present and who do ask questions and make comments and so forth. But even if that doesn't happen, I'm really comfortable knowing that I put my best out there. Didn't always feel that way, but through the years of my life. But I'm old enough now to be comfortable. I did my best. It's up to him. I give it to him. It's my gift to him, and then he takes care of it and does what he wants to with it. And it's a wonderful thing to know that somebody else is on the other end. I don't have to leave home. I don't have to travel to, across the country to be able to serve God by serving his people. There's a lot of pluses. And for most of us, it's free unless you have doodle tools that are extra. Then it's free. It's a free service to share your message with your audience and even help you find other audience members. Have you found that to be the case, Janet?
Yes. Again, people say, "Oh, yeah, she's the lady who prays," or whatever. Or I'll just get, like I said, a message from someone, a Facebook message. I see that you pray. Would you pray for? And without, I don't want to betray people's confidences or anything, but some significant, I think, needs are being met, and that's really what it's all about. Again, going back to the idea of service focused, what related to your brand can you offer people that will sincerely help them? And just go for it. Take 2 minutes out of your day to do it.
Yes,
So,
yes, yes. Let's see. We've done that. We've talked about that. So can I just recap this?
yes,
You suggest that we be brand focused. So
yes,
stay consistent and true to your brand. Be positive. Have a positive message, for heaven's sakes. If we're Christians, we've got a positive message. We want to be service centered versus me centered. In Janet's case, keep it short. She goes in and gets the job done in 2 minutes. So we're not talking about a long investment of time every single day. And then commit to it. She's committed to 100 days and has already gotten to the place where she feels like she's going to go on indefinitely. But do it long enough so that people can see the pattern and know that you're going to show up every day, right, Janet?
exactly. Consistency, I think, is the most important part, as Twyla said, in regard to marketing.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever you're going to do, whether it's memes or a Facebook Live or a blog, to simply do it consistently so people can expect, and
Yes.
see, because they're looking to see if we'll be faithful. And that's part of developing character as well.
That is a great point.
Mm-hmm.
That goes really deep in my heart.
Yeah.
We could say we're here for you, but then tomorrow we're not. It doesn't ring true, does it?
No.
Wow. Okay, the Lord has something packed in there in that phrase for me, so I'm going to explore that after we get off the program. Once again, this has been Janet McHenry, the author of many books. The latest is The Complete Guide to the Prayers of Jesus, What Jesus Prayed and How It Can Change Your Life Today. Thank you so much for being with me, Janet.
Thank you, Patricia. You're always an encouragement. And if this is anybody's first time tuning in, I encourage you to let her be your afternoon, or even in the West Coast, your lunchtime companion. She is most days of my week, and you really get a lot out of it. So
thank you so much. Thank you for those kind words. It's a privilege and an honor. And follow God. Wherever he takes you, just follow him. Be brave. There are other people out there. Connect with those people who are being brave ahead of you and ask for support, ask for questions, show up, and allow them to serve you so then you learn by example. It's a process just like anything else. Facebook Live is not a monster. You can do it. And if God calls you to do it, you can certainly do it. So be confident in yourself. Let me check one more time and see if we have any questions or comments. We don't currently have any, but sometimes that means they're not being shown. So I never quite know. It's a little bit of a frustration, but that's the way we have it. All right. So Ms. Janet McHenry and I say thank you very much for being with us. This has been Marketers on a Mission, episode 162. What I'm learning from my prayer experiment on Facebook Live with author Janet McHenry. Tomorrow I'm going to host author Becky Yates Spencer. She's going to join me and talk about her latest release, A Bruised Reed. She is an advocate for orphans, particularly those in Swaziland, and she has a deep, deep love for them, doing mighty things in God's name in a third world country. You will be blessed by this program tomorrow. We're here every weekday at 12 Pacific, 3 Eastern, and this program is designed exclusively for you to help you understand marketing online. It's different than marketing offline. Presenting yourself, being consistent, having a message, visually, with text and with content, all kinds of different ways that we serve our audience online. And we need a level of clarity that we don't need offline because people aren't seeing us. They're not getting that body language. They can't feel our heart online like they can when we're standing right next to them. And I wanted to say one other thing about that, Janet. You present yourself so empathetically. Let me say that a different way. Your empathy shines through. Your heart is very, very obviously noticeable, and you're right there with people. And I'm not expressing that well, but I want to compliment you on you're real.
That's God doing a work. We're all in process, and I'm very much in process, as is everyone else. So
you are very real. You're very real, and it's a pleasure to watch you. All right. We'll see you tomorrow with Becky Yates Spencer. Once again, this is Janet McHenry as my guest today. See you tomorrow. Thanks for being here.